is critical insulation thickness. I mean, it originated from my side only. So I just like to start with this problem because it's a very interesting problem. And what does it say there? That calculate the critical radius of insulation. Essentially, what am I doing? I have a pipe, and in the pipe, I have some fluid that is flowing. Now that fluid is a hot fluid, and I want to retain this the heat of the fluid inside the pipe, and I don't want this heat to be released. So what you in general do, you do a kind of insulation around it so that the hot fluid remains hot or the cold fluid remains cold. So the question that the problem is asking, calculate the critical radius of insulation of asbestos. Asbestos is an insulating material. So you can see the thermal conductivity is very low, surrounding a pipe and exposed to a room at 20 degrees. So if I think about, this is the place where the hot fluid is flowing. This is the plate where air is there, and this is your asbestos insulation. So you have a pipe with Ri, inner radius Ri. You have, like, you have put an insulation surrounding that, which is a shell. And then the total radius from the center is Ro. And then the temperature which is inside Ti, and then outside is you have air, and there is this heat is convected. In this, the heat is conducted. In this place, the heat is convected, and the heat transfer coefficient of air is H, and the temperature is T. So what does the problem tells me? That this insulation has a thermal conductivity of 0.17 watt per meter degree centigrade. Outside I have insulation which has outside I have air which has got a heat transfer coefficient of 3 watt per meter square degree centigrade, and this ambient temperature is 20 degrees centigrade. Okay, now calculate the heat loss from a 200 degrees centigrade. So inner fluid is having a temperature of 200 degrees centigrade and 5 centimeter diameter pipe. So diameter is, that means radius is 2.5 centimeter. Diameter is 5 centimeter. When covered with the critical radius of insulation and without insulation. So this is where I got confused. I thought that 5 centimeter is the radius. So the 5 centimeter is the diameter. So radius is 2.5. So yesterday what I saw that for this sort of situation, what will be the resistances? The first resistance will come from this thermal insulation, which is the asbestos. So this is a cylindrical system. So we know that ln R0 by Ri divided by 2 pi KL will be the resistance for this. And the resistance for air will be 1 by 2 pi R0 LH. Okay. So these are the two resistances. What is the driving force? T infinity minus Ti. So T infinity minus Ti is the driving force. And if I just, write Q, Q will be equal to what? The resistance to the driving force. This will be my equation. Now what I do, I take a derivative of this with respect to this outside radius. Why am I doing that? Because there are two different mechanisms that are ongoing here. One is when I keep putting the insulation, what happens? I am putting more and more resistance towards the conductivity. I'm putting a very highly insulating material on the surface so that the heat is not going out. So the thermal conductivity of asbestos is very low. Thermal conductivity of this metal pipe having diameter Ri is very high. So this heat will immediately lose, this fluid will immediately lose heat up to this point. But then since I have an insulation where the thermal conductivity is very, very low, so what will happen that this heat will not be able to go out of this particular place. However, there is a counter balancing phenomena is also working here, that as I keep increasing the size of the cylinder, what happens? The convected heat loss because of the insulation. So the area is also going. So you know that convected heat transfer Q is equal to HA delta T. Now, as I increase the diameter of the insulation, what happens? This area through which the convected heat, that increases. So as the area increases, the convected heat transfer also increases. So these two are counter acting against each other. Now, when I put dq by dr to be 0, I exactly find the optimal point of this radical of this insulation thickness. So if I put dq by dr to be 0, I find a condition R0 equal to K by H, which gives me how much insulation I need to put. So from this problem, what do I first do? First I calculate this RO. Okay, what should be the RO? K by H. K is given 0.17 and 3 is given for the for the surrounding air, the heat transfer coefficient. So you can see this RO is coming out to be 5.67 centimeter. Okay, this RO from this part to this part, this RO is coming out to be 5.67 centimeter. Okay, now what is the question? That with and without insulation, how much insulation should I put and all? Correct. Now when I calculated RO, I find this is 5.67 centimeters. So my critical insulation thickness, coming out to be from this ratio 5.67 centimeter. Okay. Yeah. Can you please mute? Yeah. Thank you. The inside radius of insulation is how much? 5 by 2. That is 2.5 centimeter. Okay. So this Ri, you can see that this is 5 divided by 2, that is 2.5 centimeter, right? Now let us do two calculations. Number one calculation is I'll come back to this critical insulation thickness. First calculation is, see what is the heat transfer calculated from equation 2.17 in Hallman. So this is basically I'm getting the heat transfer from here. So Q by L I calculate this to be. So if I put the values, T infinity is 20, Ti is 200, I have R0 and Ri everything. Okay, from there what I get? This is coming out to be 105.7 watt per meter. Okay. Now if I think about the heat that is lost through this outer surface, Q by L again, HA delta T. A is what? 2 pi R. Ti minus T0. If I put, I get 84.8 watt per meter. So that means the heat that is being transmitted out of, say, suppose if I consider RO, the outer radius RO to be 5.67 centimeter, which is the critical one that I have calculated from this equation. If I put this will come out to be, this will come out to be what? This is based on RO, this is larger. Whereas based on only heat transfer coefficient, convected heat transfer, this is coming out to be 84.8 watt per meter. Now, what exactly I am getting in terms of information here? Yes, please mute. Please mute yourself. Thank you. All of you should mute, okay? There is some noise. Thank you. Yeah. Now, so initially I had 2.5 is my initial radius of the pipe. Now, if I add 3.17 centimeter of insulation, on top of this, so 5.67 is my critical insulation thickness. Okay. Now, so at the addition of 3.17 of insulation actually increases the heat transfer by 25%. If I was just considering this RO 2 pi R to be my diameter of the pipe, so you can see that this was the loss that was happening through the surface. But if I add more insulation, okay, what will happen? My heat transfer will increase, rate of heat transfer will increase by this. Okay, so as an alternative, what you do, you put, say, something like, say, the fiberglass, which has got thermal conductivity even lower, okay, in order to reduce the insulation thickness to be, critical insulation thickness to be 1.33 centimeter. Correct? So why this problem is so important? Because if you tell in your interviews that your favorite subject is heat transfer, so first will be the questions of the Newton's law of cooling, okay, through convection, or maybe Fourier's law of conduction. Okay, then they may ask that how exactly you develop the Coulomb equations. Okay, and then the next question that in general comes is what is critical insulation thickness. So if you study this problem, what does it say? That based on the choice of the material, the pipe and the surface conductivity and the heat transfer coefficient around that, typically you take air, which is outside fluid. your critical radius will be fixed. What is a critical radius? If I put insulation on top of a pipe, whether it is going to increase the rate of heat transfer or whether it is going to reduce the rate of heat transfer. That is the question that you are asking. How are you going to calculate? You are going to add all the resistances first in order to get the heat flux. Q by L means heat passed per unit length, right? So watt per meter. Okay, so rate of heat transfer per unit length, that is equivalent to, say, since this is a 2D geometry, you are going for per unit length. For a 3D geometry, you'll go for watt per meter square. So rate of heat transfer per unit area or per unit length. If I have a pipe and if I add insulation on top of that, the very low conductivity of the insulation is going to restrict the heat to move out. However, the fluid that are surrounding the pipe, that is going to enhance the heat transfer with the increase in the surface area. So these two are competing with each other. So my first objective will be to calculate the critical insulation thickness, that is R0, which is nothing but coming out from this set of equation. This can be different for different, say I can put 3-4 insulations here. So from that on also I can get the RO. So this RO for this system is K by H. It's a very simple system that has been taken, that is K by H. K is the thermal conductivity of the insulation and H is the thermal heat transfer coefficient of the surrounding fluid. Now what is the outcome? If the outer radius of this outer radius of this insulation is less than the value given by this equation, less than the value that is given by this equation, then the heat transfer will be increased by adding more insulation. If you are having the outer radius which is less than the value, so this is what has happened here. What is the outer radius? That is 5.67. Okay. Now say suppose you have got surrounding a pipe exposed to, so you have got the pipe diameter is 2.5. Okay. So suppose you have got pipe inner radius is 2.5. So 2.5, okay. So you can see here, if you have outer radius, which is outer radius is less than the value given by this equation. This outer radius is now, what is that? This is more than the value given, right? So then the heat transfer will be reduced by adding more insulation, right? So this gives you a very beautiful idea that how exactly, if you put 5.67 here itself, which is the outer radius that is coming because of this R by R0 equal to K by H value, you are going to see that beyond this critical thickness, what will happen? Your heat transfer, rate of heat transfer will be higher than what is existing. So what you go for? You go for a material which is of lower thermal conductivity. So please study this part, because this is a very important concept, that if you have a pipe, you can only go for a critical insulation thickness, beyond which what happens? Beyond which the convective heat transfer that is happening through air is going to actually enhance your rate of heat transfer. Okay, since the area is increasing, that area is going to take up the matter, and this actually gave rise to one very important concept. So what is the concept that people have obtained from here? So this actually gave rise to one very important concept, which is called the fins. Okay, what is a fin? Say suppose you want more heat transfer through the surface of a pipe, or you want more heat transfer through the surface of any object. Say suppose if you look at the latest microprocessors, there you will find that the heat transfer increase. The microprocessors are like on the surface you will see that there will be grating like structures. Okay, just type Google by microprocessor architecture and look at the image. You will see that microprocessors are surrounded by metal gratings. So why those metal gratings are provided? These metal gratings are nothing but a concept called fin. Okay, say suppose you have a cylinder like this. Now, if you put fins on top of that, these fins are coming from exactly those shark fins. Okay, so The geometry for shark is different. The geometry for engineering applications are different. So if you put fins like this, which are small extension on the surface of the pipe, so what it does, it actually increases the overall area for heat transfer. This actually increases the overall loss associated with the heat transfer across the surface. So if you really want to enhance the rate of heat transfer that is going from inside to outside, you may really put a lot of fin. So from where the concept is coming, the concept is generated from the critical insulation thickness. Here I am putting in, say one may tell that, say suppose you just keep on putting the insulation as much as you like. But that is not going to give you the solution. If you just keep on putting as much as insulation into the on the pipe, beyond a particular thickness of the insulation, what will happen? You will not gain, rather you will start losing. Why are you losing it? Because now, since the area through which the heat transfer is happening, that is increasing, that is leading to higher convective heat transfer that is happening on the surface, in the air. And that is what it is causing, what is causing the more heat loss rather than you are gaining. So beyond a critical thickness, what will happen? You will start losing more heat. So in order to optimize the thickness of the insulation, what you have to do, you have to make sure that it is. So if the outer radius, so you have to understand this particular line I'm emphasizing since last class. If the outer radius is less than, outer radius means this, that means the pipe radius plus the insulation thickness. Outer radius is less than the value given by this equation, then the heat transfer will be increased. So outer radius is less than the value given. So your outer radius is less than the value given by this. This is the thing that you are fixing when you are fixing the system. When you have chosen an insulation, when you have chosen the system, this particular value is fixed. Now, if the outer radius of your, after you have put the insulation, if the outer radius is less than the value of this equation, then the heat transfer will be increased by adding more insulation. If it is more, then the heat transfer will be reduced. Now, if you have a little bit of clarity on that, you may understand that one will be for insulation, this is true, and the other will be true for the fin geometries. In fin, actually you want more heat transfer to take place. Actually, you want, say, suppose fins are used for cooling down. Your microprocessor is getting heated up, and you want it to cool down more. So the critical radius concept, critical insulation thickness concept is used there, or the critical outer radius concept is used there in order to provide more surface area where your losses are more. Okay, great. Now, this particular slide is very, very important. I'm just highlighting again and again. Why am I discussing this with a problem and all? Because this has a consequence as you go to fourth year, as you appear for different types of interviews as a chemical engineer. It's a very hard question that, of course, heat transfer, hard question that has a correlation. But then, this particular slide, you should archive and you should study before your slides are done in that manner only, so that you can quickly browse through before your interviews. Great. Now, once we are done with that, so we are going to quickly take up a few cases which will be important for our tutorial in Friday. So we are going to take up a set of quick cases. Of course, this you should derive in your room by simple hand calculations. These are all trivial calculations for you. But you are basically connected these equations with these differential equations, ordinary partial differential equations with the physical phenomena called heat transfer. But then maths wise, these are all trivial things for you. Okay, you have done more complicated maths. Only thing is that you are fitting this into a physical system. That's where the connectivity, that's where the concepts are necessary. Now, please do all these slides by yourself. Take the slides. It has been summarized. The book is when you read the book, of course it will be about 200 pages or 300 pages. But slides you can see maximum about for 2 lectures you will see maximum about 30 slides. Now, if you just scribble out these things, you will be able to really figure out what is going on. So, what is the system here? This is I have a system. I have a slab. And in this lab, these are the wall temperature, that is the ambient temperature, say 20 degrees centigrade. And then I have a heat generation source that is there inside. So suppose some chemical reaction is taking place. Okay, and for that purpose, what has happened? The center line temperature has become, say, suppose the highest temperature. So in this sort of situation, how do I put the equation that we derived, okay, in the last class? So this is the heat generation equation. Earlier, this was 0, so I had a linear solution, which was C1x plus C2. Now, since this is there, it will end up to a parabolic equation. I need not tell you this thing even. Okay, this you know already, that T will have a parabolic equation. Now you have to identify C1 and C2. How do you identify C1 and C2? You have two boundary conditions. T equal to T0 in this where x equal to 0. At x equal to 0, T equal to T0. And at T equal to x or T equal to L, you have got T equal to TW. So at x equal to plus minus L, you have T equal to TW. So if you enforce these two boundary conditions, what will happen? You will get an equation temperature profile like this, which tells you what is the profile. This particular equation tells you what? This will be a parabolic profile. Now you see there is a very, very beautiful analogy with the fluid mechanics that you are doing. So when you plug in Newton's law of viscosity into a pipe flow, which is undergoing a laminar flow, you end up getting a parabolic profile. Very similar here. Say, suppose if you have two different wall temperatures, okay, if you apply Fourier's law of conduction, you end up getting a parabolic profile. Okay, and then if you simplify, this particular profile, it comes out to be something like this. I have done some operations, just these are all steady state conditions, this and that. People are given like what is the conductivity, what are the flux, different types of calculations can be done that you are already doing in tutorial 1, and at the same time tutorial 2 you will be doing some of them. So these are the tricky points. Just go through them, what has been written here. Now same thing can be projected to the cylindrical coordinate. Cylindrical coordinate only part from the Cartesian coordinate system. What does it change? It only changes this part, right? But then now the complexity of this 1 by r dt by dr d square by dr square is there, so integral will be a little bit different. So the solution will be something like this, that T equal to minus q dot r square by 4k c1 ln r plus c2. So you can see a equation like this that will emerge, and then you enforce all the boundary conditions. So finally you will get, there will be a final solution that has been given. Yeah. So this is your final solution, which is again tells you that in a pipe, it will be a parabolic profile. Inside a cylindrical system, inside a shell-like system, you will have parabolic profile. Now here we used a very simple temperature condition. Typically this type of condition, when you fix the temperature, say T equal to wall temperature, T equal to TW, T equal to 0, T equal to 25 degrees centigrade, T equal to 298 Kelvin. When you fix the temperature at a particular boundary, those type of boundaries are called the Dirichlet boundary condition. Dirichlet boundary condition, Dirichlet, the spelling is D-I-R-I-C-H-L-E-T, Dirichlet boundary condition. Okay, it's a fixed point, it's a fixed number, right? And if you define at a particular point, if you don't define a particular temperature, and if you define a flux, okay, something like, say, suppose you define a boundary condition at this place. So suppose you define a boundary condition at this place, you say that dt by dx is 0. The temperature gradient is 0, not the temperature is 0. So that type of boundary condition is called a Neumann boundary condition. Okay. People may ask you, say suppose right now you can ask me, sir, when you calculated the critical thickness, you are considering convection here. But when you are considering going for a slab for a heat source, you are not considering convection here. Okay. Yes, this is a simpler case where I did not consider convection. For a more complicated case, I can also consider, say, this is my slab, this is my qx coming in, this is qx plus ds going in, this is my dx. Okay, and then on the surface which is exposed outside, the entire surface I can think about what I can expect, that there is convection that is going on, right? So essentially you can see a condition that I am defining, dq convection by dx is hp t minus t infinity. That is my boundary condition here. Okay, that is my boundary condition here. So Now, what is your system? Your system is, say, suppose, this dq convection that is happening through this place. What is your equation here? Your equation you put up as, what is the Q generation? Whatever is the Q generation that is there. So energy that is in the left phase is Qx. Energy out that is left, that's we have done. And energy lost by convection on this surface is H into P into dx by dt. This P is a geometrical parameter. You are basically calculating the A. Okay. Now you can see that when I integrate this convection part which is happening through this. So if you just simplify it, your equation becomes something like this. Okay. Here you will see I will come now all the three conditions. Neumann condition. Here there are three types of boundary conditions that are possible. One is called Dirichlet, one is called Neumann, and the third type is called Robin. Okay, Robin. Okay, R-O-B-I-N, Robin. So what is Robin? Robin is a mixture of Dirichlet and Neumann. Okay. What type of boundary condition is a Neumann boundary condition? D theta by dx equal to 0 at x. This is a Neumann boundary condition. What is a Dirichlet boundary condition? Dirichlet boundary condition is theta equal to theta 0 at x equal to 0. What is a Robin boundary condition? Theta equal to theta 0 plus d theta by dx. Say suppose at x equal to 0, that is called. So there are three types of boundary conditions that are possible. So here, of course, you can understand that now whenever I am defining a problem, I am going to the next level of discussion. So why I have chosen this geometry? See, initially I started here with a slab, and then what I did, see, first I discussed about the critical insulation thickness, then I have chosen a slab, and then I talked about the fin. So you can very clearly understand that where am I going, that yeah, this is the surface of a cylinder, and so suppose this is a fin geometry, and I'm trying to see what is the rate of heat transfer across a, say, suppose fin elevation. How do I do that? Say suppose I take this rectangular cross section of the fin, and then what I define, this is where the conduction is taking place, and this is where the convection is taking place. First, what I do, I integrate them in order to get the Gavarni equation, which is, this is the conduction part and this is the convection part. So in one way, if you think about this slab, see, there are different ways the heat is moving out from the surfaces inside the bulk. This is the way it has been conducted in different directions. For the time being, I'm only considering one-dimensional, and from the surface, since it has been convected out, okay, so I can anticipate that the conduction as well as the convection, this is leading to 0, which is giving my the energy balance equation, something like this. Then what I do, I say that I define, this is another very interesting aspect of heat transfer. Generally, heat transfer is defined that the temperature gradient that is defined as theta. What is this? T is suppose the variable that I have inside this medium or inside this lab. How do I define theta? I define theta as T minus T infinity. What is T infinity? T infinity is the ambient temperature. Now, if I plug in this theta into this equation, I get a more simple, this I don't carry this T infinity and all, but then I can write the entire expression in terms of theta. Okay. Now, you can understand that this is an ordinary differential equation. So d square theta dx square hp by k theta, you can bring this theta underneath. Okay, and you can perform two integrations, and those integrations will give you what? This integration will give you a solution theta equal to c1 e to the power m minus mx plus c2 e to the power mx. So it's a second order linear equation. So you will have two constants and you require two boundary conditions in order to solve the problem, in order to completely solve the problem. Now here, you can see there are three cases that has been defined, that there can be, the fin is very long, this thin fin is very long, this L is very high. The temperature at the end of the fin is essentially that of the surrounding fluid. Temperature at the end of the fin is essentially the temperature is essentially the temperature of the surrounding fluid. That means this is a Dirichlet boundary condition. Okay. Now case 2 is the fin is of finite length and loses heat by convection from its end. So the heat loss is not only convection is taking part in the heat balance, but also heat loss is due to the convection. Correct? So now in case 2, I may face a Neumann boundary condition. Okay. Now, case 3, at the end of the fin, or the part of the fin, since I see, why am I not, you may ask me the question, why am I not considering this part, that part? Because my goal here is what is happening to the temperature in the x direction. Later on, we will see how to take care of the x and y both. Today itself, we will see how to take care of both x and y. Okay, x, y, z. Once I take care of x, y, you will see it will also add to x, y, and z. Okay, that's why it is important that I have another 10 minutes, because if I don't do it in a single lecture, it will be very, very confusing for you. So case 3 is a situation at the end of the fin is insulated. So if you are having an insulator, then what happens? Then you put a boundary condition where dt by dx equal to 0, which is a Neumann condition. So heat flux for an insulator, what is the take-home message from this slide? The heat loss across a fin can be due to heat transfer due to conduction, heat loss due to convection. Okay, this heat loss can be integrated to the governing equation. Okay, now if you have insulator, if you have insulated the fins, if you have insulated a pipe, then what boundary condition do you enforce? You enforce a boundary condition which is the Neumann one, where the heat flux is equal to 0, so dt by dx is equal to 0. These are called the heat flux boundary conditions of heat transfer. You can also define a heat flux. Basically 0 means its idealization is a perfect insulator. Typically heat flux will be very, very small. That value also you can define. Whereas if you really want the surface to be isothermal, that means the temperature, if the fin is very long, the temperature at the end of the fin is essentially the temperature of the surrounding fluid. What are you doing? You are fixing the temperature there. Surrounding fluid is at constant temperature. This particular boundary condition is called the isothermal boundary condition. Of course, case 3, now you can understand what is the boundary condition. This is the boundary condition for an adiabatic system. Okay, whenever you are defining a temperature around the surface, that means you are creating an isothermal situation. So your system is an isothermal system. You are doing this isothermal and adiabatic processes in thermodynamics. Whereas whenever you are defining a heat flux boundary condition, if you consider heat flux to be 0, that means you are not allowing energy to go out of the system. And those conditions are called the adiabatic conditions. So when you put insulation around this, you get dt by dx equal to 0, you end up getting an adiabatic boundary condition. Now, if you place these equations, say for case 1, if you put theta equal to theta 0, why theta 0? Because theta 0 is T0 minus T infinity. Okay, T0 minus T infinity, and theta, if T0 is, if T equal to T0, then it will be T0 minus T infinity. If T equal to T infinity, theta will be 0. So you can see that theta equal to theta 0 at x equal to 0, and theta equal to 0 at x equal to infinity, which is the simplest case for a fin, and you may see that this is the solution. This is the profile of theta. Okay, for case 2, it will be like this. I'll come back to this. And for case 3, I have given the solution. Now, if you look at this page, this is a little bit of mathematical jugglery done based on this solution theta equal to this. Okay, I have enforced different boundary conditions here, and then some algebraic manipulations are given in order to get this temperature profile. Please do it by yourself. This is very, very important. Okay, I just leave it to you to carry out these things, because if I had a board and all, I would have done this. But then this online teaching, with this new normal, you have to do this by yourself. It's very, very important you do it by yourself, because at the end of the day, if you are doing it by yourself, you'll be able to really understand what is going on. So it is nothing, no rocket science here. So this was your ordinary differential equation. You gave a transformation theta equal to T minus T infinity to get this equation, which has a standard solution like this. And that standard solution, you enforce 2 different types of boundary. When you enforce this type of boundary condition, you get a solution like this. When you enforce a boundary conditions like this, you get a solution like this. And when you enforce a boundary condition, other type of boundary condition, you get a solution. So there are 3 different solutions are getting based on. So you can see that this is a Dirichlet boundary condition, this is a Neumann boundary condition, as we have defined in this case 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Now, once you do that, for the case 1, you get a solution like this. And for the case 2, I mean, once you really solve the temperature, why am I solving the temperature equation? Because moment I solve the temperature profile, I'll be able to get the heat flux or the heat flow or the rate of heat flow, which is the most important parameter to decide. So here you just see that moment I have solved the temperature equation, if I really go for the heat flux calculation or the rate of heat transfer calculation, so Q becomes, if I plug in these temperatures into these equations, I get a very interesting, small set of form, which is root over H P K A theta 0 tan hyperbolic ml. This is very, very important. Just remember this. Why this is important? Because this comes into a parameter called fin efficiency. Now, this fin efficiency also has a correlation with the critical insulation thickness. How? Let us first see what is the engineering graph that we are doing. So let us see, you have a fin which is a triangular cross section, and you have a fin which has a rectangular cross section, and you are calculating the fin efficiency. What is the fin efficiency? Fin efficiency is defined by actual heat transferred divided by the heat that would be transferred if the entire fin area were at base temperature. So these are the fins, right? Heat would be transferred if the entire fin area is at base temperature. The entire fin area was at base temperature, right? And then what is that? What is the actual heat transfer? So what is the purpose of fin? Fin is to the purpose of fin is to transfer as much as heat possible. Okay. Now, since you have a temperature gradient between the bulk of the fluid and say suppose outside medium, between the fluid that is in the tube or the outside medium, inside the microprocessor or outside the microprocessor, since there is a temperature gradient, there is something called this actual heat transfer. Okay. Now, this is what I have transferred. With my design of equipment, I have transferred this much amount of heat. Now, this is the idealization of the system. This is the idealization of the heat that would be transferred if the entire fin area was at base temperature. Now, these two ratios give me the fin efficiency, and if I plot this fin efficiency versus certain geometrical parameters, I am coming to this. Okay, these are all parameters that we fix moment we fix the fin. Okay, so what I can see that see the fin efficiency will be high when this parameter is low, and then it will gradually decrease towards a smaller value. So typically I should operate here. Typically I should operate here. So you can see rectangular, triangular, rectangular, triangular. I'm going to tell you the basis of this parameter. Okay, and how exactly this fin efficiency is calculated. So in this situation, in this particular slide, what we were discussing about how heat is transferring through a single fin. And for this, what we obtained for case 3. What is case 3? The end of the fin is insulated so that dt by dx is 0 and x equal to L. I can have all the cases. I'm just discussing about the case 3. Case 3, we had this heat to be Q to be something like this. Right? So you can see that. So eta efficiency, what I put? I put this Q here. I put this Q here by at the bottom, the heat that would have been transferred, the entire fin area was at base temperature. So I put this to be theta 0. I don't put this. I put this Q to be at the top. This is what is happening. Theta 0 means what? Theta 0 means again T0 minus T infinity. Okay. So this is what is happening right now with the boundary conditions, with the system that I have designed, and this is what would have happened ideally. So this is a situation like tan hyperbolic ml divided by ml. Now, if I put an analogy, ml comes out to be this, where H is what? The heat transfer coefficient of the surrounding fluid. K is what? The thermal conductivity of the fin. What is A? A is the area. A is what? A is Z into T. This is your area A. What is P? P is your perimeter, that is 2Z plus 2T. What is your P? P has been defined as 2Z plus 2T. 2Z means this Z and this Z. 2T means this T plus this T. Now, so suppose if I plug in all these parameters, Okay, and do a little bit of mathematical jugglery, I come up with a parameter called AM. Okay, now LT is called the profile area of the fin. LT is what is L? L is the length and T is the thickness. This is the profile area. This I define as AM. Okay, this AM corresponds to the profile area. And what is LC? LC is defined as the corrected length. The corrected length. What is that? Say suppose what is LC for a triangular? For a triangular, LC is equal to L. For a rectangular, LC is equal to L plus T by 2. For triangular, LC is equal to L. L is the length. Okay. For a rectangular, LC is equal to what? LC equal to L plus T by 2. These are geometrical parameters that has been defined over the years, considering different types of systems. Okay. So LC and AM comes out moment I have fixed this design of the fin. I know what is LC and AM. And moment I fix the material of insulation and at the same time the material associated with this fin, I know the thermal conductivity and the heat transfer coefficient. So this is my design parameter. Okay. Now moment I do that, based on these three cases, I can calculate the Qs. Okay, the case 1, case 2, and case 3. And based on that, the actual to ideal, if I divide, that gives me the efficiency. So I'll be able to really know from the beginning itself that whether my design is 80% or 90% efficient or not. Okay. So this was the idea why, like, fin heat exchangers are used for to enhance the heat transfer. Right. Now, once that has happened, like, one thing you should always worry about that whenever you do insulation and all, there'll be a gap. Okay, there can be air gaps, there can be contact, non-conformal contacts, which will create like, insulation layers like this. This you have to be absolutely careful because, whenever you are designing, you have to keep some parameters associated with this, which should come into the engineering design, which will take care of these losses. Because this is, say, suppose you have an air gap between two insulators, that will add to your resistance. Okay. Now most of the calculations, they go bad because people do not consider this part. So what is a summary of this set of lectures? 1D, 2D, 3D conduction equations we have derived from different directions, and we analyze steady, unsteady, with, without heat generation equations. We have studied the equations. We are going to analyze now. We understand what is driving force and what is thermal resistance. Okay, this is very different. They're very similar to electrical, very similar to fluidic, but then very different in terms of manifestation. So we introduced convection in the conduction equations. We did different case studies. Okay, we identified the concept of insulation thickness, critical insulation thickness, and then we correlated this with fin efficiency. And we understood the importance of thermal contact resistance. These are the typical summary of the things that you will require for an engineering calculation. Now, since 10 minutes remaining, so we should quickly go to a few slides of the next lecture. Okay, so that we can do the tutorial in a very comprehensive manner. Tutorial 2. What is the first thing that we should learn? How now, say suppose if I have learned that d square t by dx square equal to 0, that solution is C1x by C2. Now if I put q by k here, q dot by k here, I know that will be parabolic. I just need to plug in different boundary conditions here. In order to understand, if I put different types of boundary conditions at different directions, so what will happen? I'll be able to really get the temperature profiles. And I saw that for a slab with a heat generation at the middle, we are able to really get a parabolic. Can you please mute? There is some sound that is created. Please mute. Thank you. Now, say suppose if I put a kind of slab with surrounded by air, and then this slab is having a heat generation, we saw that there will be a parabolic profile. Now let us see how exactly we approach if we go for a 2D conduction equation. What is that? So del square t by del x square, del square t by del y square equal to 0. Simple Laplace equation we are having. Okay. What is the problem? That now I have to deal with 2 dimensions. Right? What should I do? The first analytical way to solve this problem is called the separation of variables. Okay. What I assume that whatever is happening in the y direction is solely happening in the y direction. Whatever is happening in the x direction, it is solely happening in the x direction. And the resultant is nothing but the vector addition of these two. This is what we have learned in the vector analysis. Whenever I'm dealing a multidimensional system, if these dimensions are not interlinked with each other, okay, then what I can do, I can calculate in the x direction, I can calculate in the y direction, and then what I do, I can take a vector addition to that. Exactly in the same line. So what I do, I say that my solution, I first assume this is the way any mathematical problem today is solved, that you first assume a solution. This is the way it is done analytically. If you are doing numerically, I will also show. In next week, 2 lectures will be dedicated towards how exactly to tackle these equations numerically. But today, we will finish the analytical part. What is that? Say whenever you look for an analytical solution, you anticipate what can be the solution. So what I anticipate that the t is equal to capital X and capital Y. Why capital X is a function of only X and capital Y is a function of Y. Moment I plug in this into this equation, what I can do, what will happen? This partial differential equation will break down to 2 ordinary differential equations, which tells me minus 1 by x d square x by dx square equal to minus 1 by y d square y by ds square equal to lambda square, which is this lambda square is called the separation constant. Remember, this is not an analytical solution. This is what I am assuming to be an analytical solution. Okay. Idea is that if I can really solve these ordinary differential equations, then I plug back in into x and y, and then I get the temperature profile. And that's the way we are attempting to get that. So we are anticipating that x temperature variation is independent of y temperature variation. And typically when I join the functions, I join in a vector addition form. So you can see that moment I assume that txy is equal to this, so I get this. So this partial differential equation, second order partial differential, 2-dimensional second order linear partial differential equation is converted into 2 linear ordinary differential equations. Okay, and this particular process is called the separation of variables. Okay. Now, moment you have d square x by dx square plus lambda square x equal to 0, d square y d square lambda square y by 0. Now, if your separation constant lambda to be constant, you can see that x equal to c1x plus c1 plus c2x, y equal to c1, c3 plus c4y. So this is to be 0. That means you have straight away linear solution. What is temperature? c1 plus c2x into c3 plus c4y. So you straight away have one solution, very simple solution, analytical solution, and this will be true when you have very less temperature gradient, very less coupling between x and y components. So you will see this will be so complicated equation, but a smart maths, smart thinking, you are able to really have a solution. Now, say suppose if lambda has some finite value, you will have 2 different cases: lambda square less than 0, lambda square greater than 0. Okay, now in that situation, you may see that x equal to, when lambda square less than 0, you will have a solution x equal to, say suppose some constant into e to the power minus lambda x. See, essentially this is very similar to the previous one lecture for theta we were doing. Del square theta by del x square plus some theta equal to 0 and minus some equal to 0. So for lambda square greater than 0, this will be the solution. For less than 0, this will be the solution. For lambda square less than 0, this will be the solution. So I have an array of solutions. Okay, now what I have to do, I have to fit in to the problem that I'm working with. Say suppose I have defined a problem like this, where this is my x direction, this is my y direction. What I assume that this is my width and this is my height of the slab. And this temperature is T1, this temperature is T1, but this temperature is a function of x. Typically, it's a sine function of x. So what am I doing? T equal to T1 at y equal to 0. At y equal to 0, I have what? This is T equal to T1. T equal to T1 at x equal to 0. At x equal to 0. So y equal to 0 is this. Okay, so this plane you are talking about y equal to 0. X equal to 0, you are talking about this plane. Okay, and x equal to w. X equal to w is this plane you are talking about. They are also equal to t equal to t1. So you have got 3 boundary conditions like this. Whereas for y equal to h, you have got T1, which is the normal temperature, plus Tm into sine pi x by w. So you are having a sine function here, right? Now, if you define this boundary condition in some terms of theta, which is the temperature gradient or the difference in temperature, that is T minus T1, okay, you can rewrite the same set of equations like this. You know, this why this becomes very, very important, because moment you convert this T to theta, you know, in terms of the temperature difference, what happens, you can really put a lot of constants to be zero. And that's where you gain a lot of advantage in doing very less algebra in eliminating some of the constants. Please remember that, you know, whenever the problems are framed, you know, if you give this sort of transformation, that helps. Now, if I really look at this solution, you will identify that this solution and this solution will not be able to really address this boundary condition. Whereas this one will be able to really address this boundary condition. And if I just, you know, plug in that lambda square equal greater than 0 with this boundary condition, you know, I have given the steps here, you know, enforcing all the boundary conditions, you will end up getting a solution like you end up getting a solution like this. So this is your, if I plot in a MATLAB code or a Mathematica, I'll end up getting plots like this, which is a solution of this, right? So you can straight away see that a two-dimensional equation, second order partial differential equation is undergoing a kind of separation of variable, converted into two ordinary differential equation. These three possible solutions are given, and if I enforce adequate boundary condition, I am able to get an analytical solution. This is my temperature profile. This is my temperature profile. How exactly T is varying with respect to X and with respect to Y. Okay. Now, this becomes very easy for you, that if I just, you know, consider this was a kind of, this particular slide was associated with what? Associated with only space variable. If I consider this to be a parabolic equation, that means one-dimensional but unsteady state heat conduction. What is an unsteady state heat conduction system? Say suppose I have a ball, I have heated up the ball and I have dropped the ball into water. It's a very standard system of cooling. Say, how do you cool down something? You know, when you heat up something, you drop it in a cold water bath. So immediately it transfers the heat. Now, if this problem has been posed in front of you, then how do you solve the problem? You have to solve the problem using the unsteady heat conduction equation or unsteady state equations. What is the starting point? You know that, you know, this is coming from the same equation that we derived in the last class. So del square T by del X square equal to 1 by alpha del T by del tau. Now the time is here. Now, if I give a transformation in terms of the temperature gradient, it comes out to be like this. Now, this is the condition true for a slab. For a sphere, for a cylinder, you know what are the conditions that are going to, how exactly the transformations that are going to take place and what should be the governing equations. So what I do now, you know, in this type of situation, what I do, I first enforce the boundary conditions. What are the boundary conditions? You know that this is equal to Ti, this is equal to T1. Okay, this is X, this is 2L. So X is less than 2L and 0 at time T equal to 0, theta equal to theta I and Ti minus theta equal to Ti, which is equal to Ti minus T1. What is I? What do you mean by I here? Now you can see here, this is a new concept that has been introduced. This I is called the initial condition. Okay. Please give me 5 more minutes, because, you know, one concept is remaining for the tutorial too. So since we are extending the class for 10 minutes, another 5 minutes I'll continue. Okay, just BO number I'll introduce, and that will be the then we can take up the tutorial too. More or less it is done, whatever is required for the tutorial too. So once we take the BO number, and then I think it will be over. So I'll extend for another 5 minutes. Okay. So apart from the boundary conditions that we enforce for a problem which is associated with the space-time variables, this is a variable which is associated with space. This is the variable which is associated with time. So theta is right now a function of space and time. And the profile that I'm going to obtain, this profile is called the spatio-temporal profile. Space time, spatio-temporal. So I am going to really attend now for theta a spatio-temporal profile, and you now know as the background, as the slides, as the lectures were given previously that this is a parabolic equation. Okay, this is a parabolic partial differential equation, and this parabolic partial differential equation will require what? Will require two boundary conditions associated with temperature and one initial condition associated with time. Okay, whenever you have time, what you define the initial condition. That is not a boundary condition. So this is a partial differential equation which is second order in time, second order in space, and first order in time. Okay, and for first order time derivative you need one initial condition, and for second order space derivative you require two boundary conditions related to temperature. So what is the initial condition? Theta I equal to Ti minus T1. Okay, what are the two boundary conditions? Theta equal to 0 at x equal to 0, theta equal to 0 at x equal to 2 Ly, because t equal to T1. T minus T1, theta you have defined T minus T1. So if T is T1, then theta will be equal to 0. Now what is the trick to solve the problem? You already know. I first separate the variable. This will be even easier. For space, I may anticipate some coupling, but for time there will be decoupled. So they will be decoupled because space-time curvature only happens in the relativistic domain. So I safely do a kind of separation of variable here. I frame two equations just like the way I did for the previous cases, but here you will observe that the time will be single derivative. This will be first order, while this will be the second order. So what is the solution you expect? No, it is coming a little bit at the bottom. I just move it up. So what is the solution you expect? You expect a solution very simple, that C1 cos lambda x, C2 sin lambda x, and e to the power minus lambda square alpha. This is coming from here, and this is coming from here. So a complicated parabolic equation like unsteady conduction, you may solve like this, which has a very standard solution in terms of error function. Okay, so you put certain variables, certain constants like that, and then if you put the final solution, it comes out to be something like this. Okay, this is the solution. Now getting into the lumped system, up to this point we have understood that what is the resistance. Okay, but what we did not understand, what is the capacitance? Maybe when I ask the question, when I pose the problem in front of you, that say suppose if you put a wall, this will be a thermal resistance. Perhaps the question that also should have appeared at that point of time, sir, if there is a resistance, where is the capacitance? So here comes the capacitance. I could not take the capacitance because I was solving the steady state problems. Right now I am solving an unsteady problem. So suppose if you have a hot steel ball, it is immersed in a cool pan of water. The lumped heat capacity method of analysis might be used if we justify an assumption of uniform ball temperature during the cooling process. Okay, so I use a situation called lumped heat capacity. Okay, clearly the temperature diffusion in the ball would depend on the thermal conductivity wall of the material and the heat transfer conditions. So what I expect that when you immerse a ball, it is going to be convected through the convective heat transfer, that is HA delta T, and that will be equal to what? Minus C rho V dt by dt. This is the way it will cool down. So this is your capacity. This is the change in the internal energy, right? And this is the convected heat transfer associated with that. Now, if I equate these two, earlier I was equating what? In this situation, I was equating the conduction with respect to time. Here, what am I equating? I am equating the convection. Actually, in actual case, what will happen? These two will come together, right? Now, if I just balance the convection part, then what happens? I get a solution which is like this, right? And this gives me a parameter which is there at the top, which is coming at the top, okay, which can be written as HA by rho CV. HA by rho CV. This I can write as 1 by RTH into CTH, where R is what? R is HA and CTH is rho CV. So this is a composite. This is a composite parameter that is coming at the top. This is a composite parameter that is coming on the top. What is the unit of this? If this has a unit of second, this will have a unit of second inverse, because exponential top, you don't find this to have any resultant unit. So time is second means this is a second inverse unit. Okay, and this HA by rho CV is what? It is nothing but the 1 by resistance plus the capacitance. Rho CV is the measure of capacity to hold. So moment you put a ball into a liquid, it is going to make the heat to flow across the, heat to flow from the solid to the liquid. Okay, it is going to make the fluid to flow from the solid to liquid. Okay, amount of heat that can be retained in the fluid or in the solid, that is the capacity. Whereas amount of fluid that can be convected out, that remains to be the heat transfer. So if you are forcing this hot solid into a fluid, my focus will be how much this solid can retain the heat, which is the capacity of this, and how much this liquid can convect the heat out, which is the loss associated with the heat transfer, convected heat transfer, right? So in that process, HA by rho CV, you can see that, as I have told, that HA by rho CV will have what? The opposite of HA by rho CV will have a unit of time, and this is called the time constant. Okay, and from here, you get a very interesting a dimensionless number, which is called the BO number or the Biot number. What does it say? That HS by K, this has no unit. This V by A, this A by V by A. Okay, this can be translated into what? HV by A into K. Okay, H into V by A by K. Okay, this is defined as the Bio number. Okay, or the Biot number. What does it say? It says that if this is less than equal to, so we have already noted that lump capacity analysis assumes a uniform temperature distribution throughout the solid body, and that the assumption is equivalent to saying that the surface convection resistance is large compared with the internal conduction resistance. Such an analysis may be expected to yield reasonable estimates within about 5% when the following condition is met. What is the condition? Your BO number should be less than 0.1. Okay, so what is the outcome of the whole story? When I start with the transient analysis of heat conduction with time, okay, I end up getting a time constant here. Okay, and this is what is my solution associated with that. But then when I balance the convection with respect to the heat capacity of the situation, I end up getting a solution like this, where the time constant is like this. So this time constant gives me what? This time constant gives me how much time it will be required for the solid object to release the heat to the fluid that is surrounding. If I calculate this will give me the time for the release of the heat. Okay, this is a temporal phenomenon, time for release of the heat. And this lumped heat capacity analysis is valid for the situation where HV by A by K is less than equal to 0.1. Now, this particular thing is called the Biot number, HS by K, and later on we will see, a very similar dimensionless number will also arrive to us, which is called the Nusselt number. They look very similar. Another very important question of your interview, that what is the difference between, they look very similar. What is the difference between Nusselt number and Biot number? Both are related to convection. Both are related to heat loss due to convection. But Biot number is associated with the transient convection, whereas the Nusselt number is associated with the steady convection. Okay, we'll continue with these lectures. Of course, this is a very initial idea. I'm going to take up a few more aspects of this, while doing the tutorial. So this will become very, very clear. This was important to discuss up to this point. It was very, very important to discuss up to this point, because now you will be able to do all the problems associated with the tutorial tutorial 2. Okay, so up to slide 8, of course, maybe up to slide 10. There are a few graphs that are remaining. Up to slide 10 is your syllabus for the quiz. Okay, with the tutorial answers of tutorial 1 and tutorial 2. Okay, so any questions do you have? Any question do you have? Okay, since you do not have questions, so we conclude today. So we may meet on 11 a.m. Meet at 11 a.m. on 2nd of October 2020. Thank you. Thank you so much.